afternoon and welcome to our new series of In Conversations With, series which is with our clients and our contacts to have in-depth conversations about the impact that the coronavirus has had on their business, how they are facing those challenges that they now have within the business, and indeed how they're assisting with their clients across the board. Today I am joined by Phil Muir, who is the Group Consultancy and Design Director at Space Solutions. So thank you very much, Phil, for joining us. Yeah. For those who don't know me, my name is Ingrid McGee and I am the partner and head up the Employment and Pensions Immigration team in Scotland. I also sit on the owner-managed business section of the firm and assist on the employment aspects of mergers, acquisitions, the contentious side of employment law and within the employment tribunal space. So today I am joined, like I said, by Phil. So thank you very much for joining us. This is meant to be quite an informal discussion, Phil. So really happy to have you on board and thank you for agreeing to do this. I suppose many of us know what Space Solutions does, but for anyone who is listening, would you be able to give us a bit of background about what Space Solutions do?
Yeah, in short, so Space Solutions are a consultancy and design and fit out firm with a clear specialism in commercial office interiors.
That's great. And in terms of how COVID has had an impact within businesses, I suppose it'd be really interesting for us to understand that with the easing of the lockdown restrictions and the general impact that COVID has had, what do you think the current challenges are for your business in space and also that of your clients?
Sure. So there are a couple of strands to that. It's the aspect of returning to construction sites in the safest possible way, whilst respecting the guidelines on 2-meter physical distancing. It's obviously, construction isn't really set up to be like that. So there's a big logistical challenge around that. Also, how to respond to the fact that in office buildings, we and our clients are facing the situation where only 25 to 30% of their desks will be usable under the current guidelines. So, first of all, establishing the capacity of your office and how to respond to that, I really think is the difficult part. We're currently working through that as a company and advising a number of clients on their return to the office. At the early point in the lockdown, we carried out a survey of our clients to try and understand their perspective on how working from home was going. And there's perceived benefits on, concentrated tasks, the ability to balance home and work life a little bit better. And again, this was early on. But it's clear that people miss the experience of being in the office, the ability to meet face to face, to build relationships, and that identity of your belonging to something larger like the organisation. So I think whilst many of us have continued to work successfully at home, there's a realisation with reduced capacities we're going to have to be doing that for a lot longer, and we need to find a better balance for our staff and our clients. Just purely from a day-to-day work and a mental health and well-being perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I myself would say that I share that slight concern. I have always been a huge fan and advocate for working from home. I think it's great to have the ability to do that. However, what this has shown me is that it doesn't suit me as an individual or a work colleague to do this 24/7. It's not. It's not what I really enjoy. I like the interaction that you have with your work colleagues. And again, as you talked about the value and the culture within any firm or business, I'm definitely missing that. And though it has its benefits, juggling, I feel like I'm wearing lots of different hats back here in terms of schooling, mummy duties, provide legal advice as and when. So it is a challenge. So in terms of those challenges, what would you say that you at Space have done to try and overcome those challenges? And indeed, when they've been identified within your clients, how are you assisting them in overcoming any particular barriers that the pandemic has risen, I suppose?
Yeah, okay. So quite early on, we started to think about, you know, we're going to come out of the other side of this. You know, when we don't know, but we have to keep one eye on that. So um, we formed two working groups in space in late April, and one was from our construction division, looking at how we get the construction sites back up and running. Um, and our internal QHSE and operational teams have developed a set of standard operating procedures in response to that need for safely working on construction sites. And that's looking, you know, like access one-way systems, shifts, reduced numbers on sites, you know, etc., etc. Just, you know, ensuring that physical distancing can be maintained. Um, Hygiene, welfare facilities, you know, all these things that you take for granted, but you know, they just have to be worked through and be very systematic and managed very carefully. Um, for the offices, we brought together 5 key strands, which was QHSE, the workplace consultancy and design aspect, to look at capacities and what we might be able to do to offices to increase capacity. Also HR, IT and FM, recognizing that, you know, if we're going to get back to the offices, all of these strands need to come into play at some point. So we'll and purely from a space perspective, we first established what the effects of physical distancing would be in the office and the reality of the usable space. Then we looked at our staff. We assessed them, took the same approach as we would with a workplace consultancy project, understand what people do and what kind of space they need to support what they do. We also looked at a new strand as looking at people's commuting possibilities, because obviously public transport is quite a concern, and individual home working setups. Not everyone is happy or able to very easily work at home. So we need to, you know, we need to look at how best to respond to that. So we've been developing a booking system for a reduced office capacity, and just protocols for accessing the office for when people need it. The guidance is still that people should work from home if they can, but easing of the lockdown will afford some opportunities to vary working patterns, which we think is going to be beneficial for people. And we're embarking on a program of change management. As I say, the reality of that reduced capacity means that the working from home is going to be a factor for a long time. And it's just about getting the people's mindsets in the right place for doing that long term. You know, so we spoke initially about, you know, getting the office ready for the people, but we need to get the people ready for the office, and that office is largely going to be at home for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's quite an interesting point that you pick up. We're trying to get the individuals ready to come back to work. So even though we're saying that the business or the office environment, wherever that may be, is ready, it's about engaging with staff to the extent that they're confident and comfortable with returning to work. And that's a huge, actually going to be a huge task for many businesses, I think, across the board, regardless of what sector you're in. And I think what we're seeing with our clients and our contacts is, you know, how important the risk assessment aspect is within businesses, effectively communicating that with staff so that they know exactly what it is that the business has implemented to reduce or minimize the risk of any sort of infection. So again, it's really interesting times, but it's interesting to hear the booking system. That's the first time I've heard of the booking system. Okay. We've had other businesses suggest that they might split teams up, have team A, team B, and so that again, for tracking and tracing purposes, they know who's been in and when. So so it's going to be an interesting time, I think, over the next few months. Firstly, communicating with employees on how to get back to work and instilling that level of confidence to facilitate that. And again, in terms of just ensuring that you've got everything required to be implemented for whenever that return date may be and however that may look. So thanks for sharing that. In terms of, and I listen to lots of podcasts, so apologies for the framework of this question, but I quite like this whenever it's ended in this kind of way. But if you were to impart one or two golden nuggets to either those within your sector, your business, or within, you know, or your clients, for example, what would that be at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting time as a workplace consultant. You know, for a long time, workplace consultants, workplace designers have been advocating the benefits of agile working. The phrase to view work as something that you do rather than a place that you go to. You know, and we know uptake of this has been varied. You know, that this is slightly artificial and that it is an enforced situation. But most organisations have the technology to work anywhere. However, there are still issues with trust and maybe perhaps lack of faith in the technology. Maybe not so much now, but you know, just the ability to work remotely, people have maybe been sceptical. So on the 23rd of March, we all moved to home working overnight. And as I say, it's an enforced situation that's somewhat artificial, but it's proven beyond doubt that the technology works and that people can manage teams remotely, most important. Previously, we felt that, you know, process tasks maybe had to be in the office and knowledge workers maybe could be remote. We found that maybe that's flipped on its head a bit more. Knowledge workers need more to be interacting with people face to face, and processes may be something that can be done away from the office. So I think one thing is I don't think that people are going to be rushing back to the way things were before the lockdown, and we're asking clients to think about the lessons learned about what has worked and what it means for the future of the office. You know, there's a lot of speculation about the death of the office. People saying you don't need an office. Some people saying, okay, if I get an office, should it maybe be twice the size that it is now? Should it be half the size it is to deal with the larger uptake in home working? But we know from asking our clients, we know that people still value the office. You know, people want to meet their colleagues and customers, be part of the organisational culture. There are lessons to be learned, that implications for an office designed less around individual tasks and more around collaboration and social elements, that people want to feel part of a larger team and have a sense of togetherness. Now, and as I say, none of this is new thinking, but the past 10 weeks have shown us that we don't need to manage by presenteeism. And, you know, we'll hopefully see more business accelerate uptake in agile working and think about what their office estate therefore looks like to support that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's key. And I think some businesses who have perhaps resisted flexible working or working from home will find it very difficult to either dissuade employees from continuing to do that or indeed refuse that going forward. I think it's very much going to be the norm, and working in the office may be the exception as and when required. So I think that's what's going to come as a challenge to some businesses who have perhaps been more accepting of it on a temporary basis, but where do they really stand if it's going to be a more permanent feature going forward?
And the role of the manager in all that, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that brings our Q&A session to an end, Phil. It is meant to be just a quick whistle-stop tour of everything that's going on at the moment. So thank you very much for sharing your insight with us. And for those who want to know more about Space Solutions, or indeed how they can perhaps benefit from their services, I'm sure Phil wouldn't mind being contacted directly, or indeed contact me if required. And we're going to be rolling out more of these series in conversations with in the next few weeks. So again, feel free to join in or get in touch if you want to feature in any of our In Conversation With series. So again, thank you very much, Phil, for your time. And thank you very much for everyone for listening.